So we're going to talk about prostate specific antigen a lot, the PSA screening, as I believe men need to have a thorough understanding of that test to be able to make a true informed decision. And ultimately the true informed decision comes about from what cancer treatments are actually doing for true survival rates. So I want to wake everybody up to this reality. I'm going to read an excerpt from the book in front of you. So this book right here, How We Do Harm, A Doctor Breaks Ranks About Being Sick in America. This is actually written by Otis Webb Brawley, MD. He's a medical physician. He was actually the chief scientific officer for the American Cancer Society. So I believe the guy probably knows a thing or two about cancer. So this entire book, I think every single man who's ever even considering to have their PSA checked or concerned about prostate cancer, I believe every single man should read this book. I think every man should read it no matter whether they're concerned or not. And I know that some people who aren't concerned about their own health are probably not too concerned about other people's health except for maybe their family. So maybe you want to protect your dad, or maybe you want to protect your son. So read this article. Because the reality is the medical community is taking advantage of men by using the prostate-specific antigen test. Now, I'm going to say that not every single medical physician is probably doing that, but the grand scheme of things, the medical system as a whole is really, really robbing people. They're stealing from them, they're harming them, and they're harming them, and they're stealing from them and taking from them both in the physical, their own health, their sexual relations with their wives, and their money for sure, and we'll go through that in a minute. And so to reiterate, that is my opinion, there you go, but now let's read the Chief Scientific Officer of the American Cancer Society, what he said. Otis Webb Brawley, at least he was when he wrote the book, so he may not be the Chief Scientific Officer for the American Cancer Society anymore, because probably once he told the truth, he probably got kicked out. So, but I don't know, he may be there or not, I haven't checked. So he says this in this book, this is directly from it, all right? You cannot get this in the ebook. This is actually in the hardcover book. I purchased the ebook and I was quite upset that they cut and spliced things out. Google had some censorship there, even to a prostate cancer medical physician's, book. So can't get it ebook, but you can in the hard copy, so I suggest getting the hard copy because it gives you the hard truth. Here's the hard truth. This is an example of Otis Webb Brawley, who runs a hospital, actually sat down. Okay, this man who runs a hospital sits down with a marketer, a man who actually wants to market PSA screening or free prostate-specific antigen testing for prostate cancer during the Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, which I think is right now. All right, here we go. He says this, first, free screening. So this is actually the salesman. This is the guy who wants to sell Otis on, me and Otis are on a first name basis, not really. Dr. Brawley. Dr. Brawley is sitting there across the desk from this man who wants to convince him to let his hospital be a part of this free prostate cancer screening van that will go around town in parking lots of, supermarkets and different places and just welcome everybody in and get your PSA checked. That's what they want to do. Oh, Depends Diapers actually funds that. Zero is the nonprofit. Yeah, right. So why would Depends Diapers, now that I said that, why would Depends Diapers fund free prostate cancer screening? Because, gosh, Depends Diapers, they really want people to prevent, and they're just a good heart there from Depends. No. What do a lot of men need if they go through conventional medical treatment for prostate cancer? Diapers. Yeah, okay. So here's what he says. Here is the salesman, the sales pitch. He says, first, free screening provides free public publicity for the health system. Free publicity. Hey, everybody, we're giving out free screenings. Free, free, free. Come on in, get your blood test. The blood test doesn't really harm you. It's what we're going to convince you to do after that. That's not what he said, but here we go. People really feel good about us because this is a community service. It will cause women to come to our Women's Center and men to come to our chest pain center. It increases almost all of our product line. It's cheap, effective advertising. For every 1,000 men over the age of 50 who volunteer for free screening, 145 will have an abnormal screen. Given the demography of the mall, 10 of the 145 will have insurance that our health system doesn't take. So 135 minus 10 off that 145, will come to see why they have an abnormal screening. I always think to myself, I'm like, if they really cared about people dying from cancer, they'd probably say, well, we gave you a free test. We told you you might have prostate cancer. I know your insurance doesn't cover it, so let's just give you the free follow-up to make sure that we just didn't scare the bejesus out of you. Does anybody use the term bejesus? I don't know. We make up the cost for offering free screening by charging for the evaluation of the abnormal screens. Oh, they already make up their cost. So now they've cut, they've kind of broken even. And again, I'm adding some of my own thoughts here. Again, this is from the American Cancer Society Chief Scientific Officer, okay? About 40 and 45 will have cancer. We hit bingo with them. We know the number who will get radical prostatectomy, and the number who will get radiation therapy, and the number who will get hormones. And we're going to talk about each one of those therapies and the reality that they don't save lives. So here we go. He goes on to say, we know the number who will have incontinence so bad they will need an artificial urethral sphincter implanted so you don't wet yourself or need to wear diapers the rest of your life. We know how many. We know the number who will not be able to get erections and will want Viagra. And we'll go over those stats in a minute. We know for how many Viagra won't work. We know how many penile prosthesis we will sell. So here's Otis. Otis in his book writes, realizing that I have been granted an audience with Lucifer, I ask a fundamental question: how many lives will you save if you screen 1,000 men? He says, the marketer took his glasses off, looked at me as if I were a fool. Don't you know? No one knows if this stuff saves lives. I can't give you that number. So literally the people promoting free PSA screening, these vans, this Zero organization, they are literally doing it knowing how many men won't be able to have sex with their wives for the rest of their lives unless they use a penile prosthesis. And I don't know about you, yes, I would love my wife no matter what, but the reality is that wouldn't be so much fun for myself. I don't know about you guys. What do you think? Prosthesis and definitely put a strain on things, huh, Anthony? Yeah. So that is the Chief Scientific Officer for the American Cancer Society, and I know I've got a lot of slides, so we're going to go as fast as we possibly can. But to just kind of top it off here, and here's the guy who actually, Dr. Richard Ablin, who is coined the discoverer of the prostate specific antigen test. He said, I quote, I never dreamed that my decision 4 decades ago would lead to such a profit-driven public health disaster. Profit-driven public health disaster. The discoverer of PSA says that's what it's turned out to be. So I think some of these two men at least should open up the eyes of every single person watching this and say, you want to tune into the rest of this video. Make sure that you also get the resources. If you watch on Facebook, you can TWD in the comments right now. You'll get access to the links to the articles, the research journals, every bit of information that I share. Some of it is updated already on the website, thewilddoc.com. Some of it is yet to be updated just yet. But my staff will get to it in the next couple days for you. So I did add a few things last minute on them. So if we look at prostate specific or prostate cancer trends in the United States and other countries compared to other countries, if you look at it, we are somewhat of 100 times more prostate cancer than some Asian countries. Now, some people may want to say that, what about genetics, right? Chinese, Japanese, Asian cultures, they have different genetics. Well, if you study, and they have studied, when you study Asian individuals who migrate and come into the United States, and they live in the United States, by the 3rd generation, so not their children, because the children are going to eat at the dinner table of the parents, but the children's children, so it would be the grandchildren of the ones who migrated here. When the original family, they would stay adhered to their cultural diet. Meanwhile, the next age group would integrate a little bit, but still be eating at the dinner table with their parents, and then their children ultimately fully integrated in the United States way of living, and their prostate cancer rates are just the same as the rest of America. So you can't blame it on genetics. I do want to touch base, though, and just kind of describe what cancer is. And I think this is an extremely beneficial research article that I believe everybody should read through. And it takes into account almost all aspects of cancer research up to this point in time when this was published. And again, it was 2005, but it's one of the most simplistic and easiest ways for people to start realizing, and I think everybody should be able to conceptualize where cancer comes from when they understand this information. So here we go. If the wound, and what they're saying is cancer is a functional repair tissue, and the way they describe that is if a wound, like you cut yourself, a wound, okay, you're going to need tissue repair, you're going to need cells to replicate to heal and close up that wound. And you're going to want cells in that region that's already been traumatized and cells have been killed off. You don't want more to die. So your genetic expression in that region of your body actually changes so that the cells in that region of that wound, just like a cut, or anywhere inside your body, whether it be your prostate or your arm, cells stop dying. The genetic expression of cell death stops and promotes cellular replication. What is that? It's basically cancer. The cells aren't dying and they're replicating rapidly. Well, that's a tissue repair mechanism. That is necessary. But when it's under control of the nervous system, the immune system, there are factors there that once the wound is healed in a healthy individual with all other driving factors of continuous wound creation, tissue damage creation, what happens is then the wound is healed and the body goes back into natural apoptosis, which means programmed cell death at a certain point in time once that cell has reached its maximum potential benefit for the body. Cells go through a life cycle. They don't live forever. Cancerous cells are cells that live forever. If a wound is persistent due to chronic physical, that'd be like radiation, electromagnetic fields, traumas, particles, kind of like particles like asbestos, okay? Chemical carcinogens, hormone disruptors, heavy metals, toxic chemicals, damage amplification of gene expression, skipped a line there, or biological, so aging, which aging is not a cause of trauma, but you see in older people more cumulative damage. So I disagree with that statement, but we'll go on here. Free radicals, inflammation, generation, nutrient deficiencies, bacteria, and that's not really, I mean, that's biological. That's just you choose to eat the wrong things, you know what I mean? Bacteria, viruses, stress, etc. These damage and ultimately lead to amplification of gene expression or activation in gene expression in surrounding cells that lead to clinical cancer. Based on the commonalities between cancer and wound healing, a new hypothesis of cancer is presented, and malignancies are not passive, mutated, useless masses. Rather, they are functional tissues produced by gene activation. Gene activation, not the genes themselves. Let me clarify that, make sure everybody understands this. Factors in an effort to heal persistent wounds in the body. Based on this hypothesis, cancer treatments aimed at killing cancer cells only may be misguided. That's why I'm saying right now to you all watching this, the current medical standard of treatment, hormone deprivation, or let's just call it like it is, castration, whether it be physical or chemical, or radiation, chemotherapy, and what's the other one? Surgery. Cut it out, burn it out, or poison it out. But those are all things that cause wounds, which if you understand radiation and even surgery, and which is a wound, and then you also see that chemotherapy causes cancerous stem cells to be generated, you'll now understand why metastatic diseases are running rampant. So the logistical extension of the hypothesis is cancer treatment focused on wound healing by limiting causes of persistent wounds, providing repair cells, gene factors, and substrates required for cell repair cells may yield more fruitful treatments and results focused on killing other than focused on killing cancer cells alone. So we shouldn't focus on killing the cancer cells alone. We should focus on getting rid of whatever's causing the problem in the first place. So, Anthony, can you see the whiteboard here? You all good? All right, y'all. All right, so we're going to talk about this and kind of simplify it for you. We got, we'll do PC, okay? Prostate cancer comes from wounds. And we'll just put wounds to simplify it after that, but we could also say inflammation, inflame. We'll just do that. Inflame. Inflammation, all right, will ultimately lead to prostate cancer. But this, like it said, most fruitful results in any treatment strategy is going to be figure out what's causing this. But guess what? medicine is only focused on this. As long as we can get rid of the cancer cells, well, then we've gotten rid of the cancer, which is true. The reality is, does that mean you're going to live longer? No, it's not, because if you don't stop whatever's causing the damage, the wound, the tissue damage, the inflammation in the body, it's going to result in greater risk of overall mortality, and that's what they're seeing in clinical trials. When looking at men who undergo medical treatments for prostate cancer, you actually see higher mortality rates. So again, this is backed by all the clinical research. The government data, in fact, even supports what I'm saying. So again, TWD in the comments on Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube in the future, you're going to have to go into the description and use the link that is in the description to thewilddoc.com, and you'll get the post that has all of the links to the documents. So we've got to figure this out. So what is going to cause this? Well, we're just going to call it a trigger, all right? Or triggers, all right? There are multiple triggers. So the Wellness Way is going to focus on these. What are the triggers? And they can be, we'll say, neuro, all right? Neuro, stress, spinal misalignments, structural damages. So it can be like physical things that are traumatizing the nervous system. It can be physical traumas, like, again, particulates and things like that. There can be chemical toxicities that are causing that. So what's that? Polyps. Polyps are going to be a growth. Okay. So a polyp is going to be a result of tissue damage that's resulting in growth of that tissue. So a polyp is a growth of a tissue. So that, does that make sense? Yeah. Polyp is your tissue. It's growing exponentially. It's growing out of control. You got to figure out why. So that's what we're looking at here. And really we could say that it's thoughts, traumas, and ultimately toxins. So the 3 T's. All right, to simplify that. And that's what we're going to boil down with proper testing if you're looking at truly testing for underlying factors. So medicine is all focused here. As long as the cancer, as long as we cut it out, burn it out, or kill the cancer cells, well, then we cured the cancer. And if by that definition, curing cancer just means the cancer isn't there anymore in the body, but the person dies sooner, the results are not what the patient desires, but by statistics, which we're going to get into in hardcore in just a minute, benefit the cancer industry. So we've got to get to what's causing this, which is triggers, and then we're going to break down what are all the triggers. So to go through this, 1 in 6 men will be diagnosed in their life, and I may not have updated that 100 times. And again, we talked about why it's not genetic and the evidence of that, and again, that's in the peer-reviewed literature. What if you got a D? Joe, what if you got a D? What if your kids, like, it's different now that you homeschool, but what if your kids, anybody here that has kids that go to school, okay, if they come to school, come back from school and they got a D on their report card, what are you going to be like?
Probably be angry at them.
Angry at them, okay, what else? Don't stress yourself out because that leads to disease, but over your kids not doing well in school. But you'll be concerned, why is this not? You probably blame the teacher, right? No, I'm kidding, just don't do that. Parents, step up. Anyways, a D. You know what? I think, don't they make you retake that class if you get a D? Like, I think back in my school when I grew up, you retook the class if you did not get a C or better. All right, so F would be failure. D would be like sometimes you get a pass, they let you go, and then sometimes D you didn't get to and you need to retake the class. So, well, in terms of U.S. Preventive Service Task Force, when looking at the benefits of screening for prostate cancer, there's only 4. There's only 4 judgments. So it's A through D. There is no F for failure, but a D is basically a failure, meaning it's detrimental. Disregard or discourage this testing. So in 2012, the U.S. Preventive Service Task Force, which was at the time an independent association or a board that was looking at the benefits of different medical procedures, which it's been overtaken by industry. So we're going to touch on that in just a minute. Again, that's peer-reviewed medical literature that I'm quoting here. But again, in 2017, they updated it from a D, means discouraged, don't recommend the PSA screening. And then ultimately now in 2017, they're saying a C, but in the C, it's don't do it in men over the age of 70 still, but in men 55 to 69 years old, we get a C, which is basically they have no confidence in it. There's not enough evidence to say it's beneficial, and there's no evidence to say, or there's actually evidence to say there's possible harms of overdiagnosis, overtreatment, and which can result in increased mortality. So U.S. Preventive Service Task Force, great article to read through here. So in this one, they specifically point out that the U.S. Preventive Service Task Force review showed that the evidence showing that active surveillance, and it's kind of nice how they label it active surveillance. Active surveillance may be as effective as surgery and radiation in preventing death from prostate cancer in selected men. Active surveillance. What is active surveillance, folks? It's do nothing. Like, doing nothing is as effective as surgery and radiation. Active surveillance is just keep doing tests and watching the disease progress. So that is what the medical community now has adopted as their gold standard for a large portion of the men being diagnosed with prostate cancer is we're just going to watch you. And sadly, I've talked to a lot of men who have been diagnosed with high PSA or prostate cancer, and guess what? I asked them, so do they go through all the nutritional evidence that shows you could actually reverse your prostate cancer with a diet? How many of you think I got even a single one of them that was told by an oncologist or their primary medical physician? Yes, they went through those studies with me, which we're going to go through here in a minute. Not a single darn one of them. That is horrible, folks. Horrible, all right? So I've got some, I got more patient relations here and stuff, so I can kind of go a little bit more hardcore in your face. So I appreciate the people being here that allows me to do that. But folks out there, just hang with us. No wonder no one trusts us. Great little read. It's a doctor basically giving his opinion after the U.S. Preventive Service Task Force went from saying, discourage PSA testing in your blood work. And then in 2017, they said, no, actually, tell men that we should discuss that you might want to get your PSA checked. But what are your values? So literally now the recommendation from the U.S. Preventive Service Task Force is a medical physician should actually say, hey, let's talk about, I know we were supposed to tell you you shouldn't get the PSA check anymore. We shouldn't test it at all. Meanwhile, the test isn't harmful. It's what you do with the results of the test are ultimately the harmful effect. But now medical physicians, since 2017, the recommendations from the government, which has been regulatory captured, which means basically regulatory captured by industry, profit, okay, money has captured them. They're supposed to say, hey, what are your values? So we don't know whether the PSA check does any good, and there's significant risks and harms if you follow my recommendations after your PSA is discovered to be higher. I'd like to know what you'd like to do. How would you like to go to a doctor that has that much confidence in their testing and their treatments? But so it's a comical read. I'd highly recommend everybody check that out. Cancer screening, overdiagnosis, regulatory capture. Here it is. So this is where I'm going to say, yes, they have been captured by industry, and they specifically say that now the proposed legislation that has now passed, allows for the inclusion of clinicians who would profit from people being tested positive for higher PSA, and also relevant stakeholders from medical product manufacturing communities will now be able to be a part of this organization that is supposed to be making unbiased. So you can see that since this legislation changes have been made, and that was 2017 when that was published. But I wanted to point out, and this is a great example, in this type of graph I couldn't necessarily show you, but I'll show you another one in prostate cancer in a second. But this would go for breast cancer, prostate cancer, thyroid cancer. Just watch. Screening goes up, but mortality for prostate cancer, the bottom light blue line, does nothing. Screening went up, ultimately because screening went up, incidence of diagnosed papillary thyroid cancer went up, but aggressive terminal deadly thyroid cancers never went down. So this idea of early detection is a myth when it comes to cancer. And we'll explain why later on. And we'll also explain, according to a government report, why screening creates such a bias and this false perception that early detection is beneficial and saves lives only because of a 5-year survival criteria. Mortality results from randomized prostate cancer screening trials, the incidence of death per 10,000, well, let's just look at the graph. It was per 10,000 was 2, and in the screening group, but then in the non-screening group that didn't get their PSA checked, their incidence of death was 1.7 over the time period, which is relatively low. But there you have it. You have a better chance of living longer if you don't get your PSA checked. If you're going to a medical physician, because PSA can be an indicator of health, and we're going to talk about that. It can be an indicator, but PSA is not the problem. Repeat that with me. PSA is not the problem. There you go, man. All right. All right, you're following along. All right, prostate cancer deaths. So here you have it, New England Journal of Medicine. Black line is screening group, red line is control group, and mind you, the control group could voluntarily get screened if they so desired, so they didn't mandate the men not get screened, because that would be horrific if we did that, if we didn't let them do something that we don't know whether it benefit. And that was the purpose of the study, was to figure out whether screening was actually beneficial. But which one has the higher mortality rate? Screening group does. The screening group has a higher mortality rate, but it was kind of a non-significant, and this was specifically from prostate cancer. So men who got screened for prostate cancer had a higher risk of dying from prostate cancer, and they did have a slight overall mortality rate increase. So a push for cancer screening with limited benefits. These are some of the articles I'm giving you guys access to. You will notice that in 2019, as I searched for prostate cancer rates, guess what I found? I found 2019 April prostate cancer incidence and mortality have declined in most countries. And we'll explain, again, to simplify it, let me explain right now, short and simple, the only reason. Again, I could actually not even say let me explain, but I could say that original book, How We Do Harm by Otis Webb Brawley, the chief scientific officer of the American Cancer Society, guess what he says? He says, when you look at the evidence, his theory on the reason we've seen prostate cancer mortality rates decline in the United States in other countries is only because of hormone deprivation, the surgery, the radiation, and the chemotherapy. The treatments we use kill men faster. See, folks, it doesn't matter whether it's surgery and sepsis ultimately, or hormone deprivation and diabetes and a stroke or heart attack, or if it's chemotherapy and your cancer's gone but you die of some other immunodeficiency issue and pneumonia. Well, whether it's pneumonia or a 9mm, I'm rhyming tonight. Pneumonia or 9mm, guess what? Either one can prevent you from dying from prostate cancer. Because if you die sooner from something else, then you are no longer a statistic for the medical system to continue to be like, I don't know why cancer rates aren't going down. Now they can say they're going down. But if you read the article, despite all the available evidence, this is what you'll come to. Freeman said the study confirmed the impact of prostate specific antigen screening. The impact of it. She explained that in the United States, prostate cancer incident rates increased from 1980s to 1990s during the time period in which they said everybody's got to get screened. So they were finding more harmless, and there are cancers that are relatively harmless to the body. I would want to use it as an indicator of the body not working as efficiently and effectively as it should have at least some period in the person's past history. And I say that specifically because the reality is the body can encapsulate cancer, and while it's encapsulated, it can't cause you harm. And in fact, a medical procedure such as biopsy could actually release cancer cells into the rest of the body, and that's a side effect of biopsy, folks. So biopsies aren't so benign either. The decline from the mid-2000s through the 2015, largely due to the increased use of PSA screening. This type of screening is less available in low-income nations, contributing to diagnosis at later stages and higher mortality rates. And this is specifically only to prostate cancer. Go back to my previous example. Again, if you kill men faster from the medical treatments, they're never going to die of prostate cancer. Instead, they die of heart disease sooner. You now don't have a statistic against the medical system saying your treatments are worthless. They can argue upon the argument of only prostate-specific mortality, not all-cause mortality, and that's what you'll find when you read the research. No reductions or, in fact, an increase in all-cause mortality. Many men plan to ignore PSA test guidelines, and what does that mean? Most men say they'll still have their prostate cancer get prostate cancer screening despite expert panel's recommendation against it. So men, even though the evidence says harm is coming to you, if you get this test, if you follow the medical treatment, folks, the reason I'm saying if you follow the medical treatment is because it's the medical treatments. Listen, if you were in my office, I would properly explain, and that's what I'm doing right now. I would properly explain to every one of my patients before I ever discussed with them PSA numbers. Do you follow me? And sadly, the reality, to protect my license and legally, I would have to tell a man if I found his PSA level was high on our labs that we ran on a person, I would have to tell him, you now need to go get checked for prostate cancer. But let me go through this entire PowerPoint presentation with you. That's what I would do for my patients, because this is the information that men deserve to have. And ultimately, the wives that want to make love to their men, I think they deserve this information as well, because you'll find here in a minute they're being deceived as well. Prostate cancer mortality in a finished randomized trial, great read there. Again, all of these. Prostate cancer overdiagnosis and the problems with that. Here's again my good buddy Otis. No, Dr. Brawley. Again, I need to show the man respect because he's willing to step out of the medical world and actually tell people the truth. And again, this is the Chief Scientific Officer of the American Cancer Society. Let's read a little bit of what he says. Widespread screening was adopted quickly in the United States, where it is dogma that early detection and aggressive treatment saves lives. How do you like that? It would be more than 20 years before the results of well-designed prospective randomized studies would be published assessing the effectiveness of PSA screening, notably the prostate, lung, colon, ovarian cancer trial, which suggested that screening does not reduce mortality. Because of the bias, and another note he makes, is because of the bias towards newer therapies, there was an early widespread uptake in Europe and the United States without full assessment of its benefits and risks. And by 1999, more than half of all American patients with prostate cancer were being treated with androgen deprivation therapy within 1 year of diagnosis. And again, that causes an increase in mortality. So prostate cancer screening, more harm than good. Prostate cancer screening doesn't cut death rates. Prostate test found to save few lives. Prostate cancer at 11 years follow-up, New England Journal of Medicine. PSA screening does more harm than good. So there's some simple article reads from the media, and there's also peer-reviewed medical literature studies that I'm giving you all. Again, TWD in the comments on Facebook if you're watching there. YouTube, you got to go into the description of the video. And on Instagram, or what are we live on also? Yeah, Instagram, like there, just go to the website, thewilddoc.com, or go to our YouTube channel, subscribe to those things, email list on thewilddoc.com, and you get emails when we release the YouTube version of this so that you have this on rerun and get it to your, does anybody watch reruns anymore? European randomized study of screening at 13 years follow-up. Again, no benefits in increased mortality. U.S. Task Force and routine prostate cancer screening. That's what they said in 2012. Should all men be screened for prostate cancer? Question mark. Should all men? The reality is, with the evidence we have available to us, despite what all I just said, see, the medical community judges the benefit of PSA screening only by whether their treatments work or not. So because their treatments are ineffective, they say recommend against it or let men make their decision up for themselves. And if we happen to allow them to make the unwise decision, uneducated, informed decision to get their PSA checked, well, then we can luckily get them into the system. And that's one of the things I forgot to mention from that cancer screening, overdiagnosis, and regulatory capture. This is where I'm quoting from it here. They say that when you look at people such as with thyroid cancer, and they said this with men's prostate cancer as well, if you took biopsies, random biopsies of the prostate of men, but also biopsies of thyroid, you could literally find cancer on almost every single person if you studied it in detail enough. And thus, what they said is it's so common. These cancer cells are so common in these tissues, but benign and not going to cause. But they are cancer cells, so cancer freaks everybody out, so they do want to do something. And they're led through fear to do whatever is necessary to get those cells out of their body. They said it's a bottomless reservoir. Bottomless reservoir of patients. So, crunching the numbers, what cancer screening statistics really tell us. So here is why they artificially inflate the benefit of cancer screening, or they artificially inflate the idea that early detection saves lives. Here's what they do. So without screening, Anthony, you got the screen up on, all right, sweet. So I shouldn't even have to ask. This guy's on top of it right here, all right? I could totally start joking about that, and he's on top of it now, and he's gonna always be able to get, never mind, for his wife. You get, like, we're leading in here, you got me, okay. Without, come on, we're talking about prostate cancer here, or there's, sex jokes should be like, okay, like this is thumbs up, you're okay to do the sex jokes. I bet my wife's like watching this like, shut up. Without screening, so on the top little bar there you see without screening. So if we take 100 men, let's say, and we don't do screening on those 100 men, ultimately they find cancer later on when cancer is actually starting to cause significant symptoms. So they're diagnosed at age 67 years, all right? But cancer started long before that. Let's say the cancer started around age 60, and then they were diagnosed at age 67, and their 5-year survival was 0% because all the men, all 100, were dead at 70 years of age. That's only 3 years. And because of the criteria for disease or survival is 5 years. You live 5 years, all right, you survived. You can die 5 years one day, but guess what? We're going to use you as a statistic why everybody else needs to get screened for early detection. All right, cancer diagnosed because of screening at age 60. All right? So because of screening, you're going to find cancer cells earlier because you're going to have biomarkers, indicators like higher PSA in some of the men, which there's a lot of men that have aggressive type prostate cancer, that it doesn't increase PSA. So it can give you a false sense of security. So there's another harm of screening. Men can go out about living their lives eating pizza and beer cheese dip. All right, give a shout out to the you-know-what restaurant local. All right, vacation meals every once in a while, you're okay. But the reality is if you have prostate cancer, no way. I like this. I'm really on the rhyming this night. Did you get that? Like, I'm rhyming here. I'm like, all right, cancer diagnosis, it's, let's say, 60 years. They live till 70, all right? So that's 10 years. So 5-year survival is what in that group? It's 100%. So now what they say, it's 100 times better. It's 100% increased ability to survive cancer if you go to screening. They died at the same age. There was no benefit. But again, reiterating the fact, what the evidence shows is that your risk of dying is increased if you go the medical route. And am I saying that there is no way ever that a man shouldn't have some sort of surgery to buy him time? His prostate is swollen so bad he can't urinate, or which can cause massive infection and problems. Thank God for a skilled surgeon in that moment in time to save the man's life. He shouldn't have waited till that point in time in the first place. Does that make sense to everybody? Like, I'm not saying there's absolutely no way, because then somebody's going to poke holes in my presentation here. But the reality is this. The benefit isn't there on the massive scale we're using these interventions. They're actually causing harm. We're not using it when it could be beneficial like we should. Just another example, but again, you can get the references to this. Another one, 1,000 people with progressive cancer 5 years later, 400 out of the 1,000 were still alive, 600 were dead, versus 2,000 people with non-progressive cancer, but 2,000 because of screening, you have overdiagnosis. So there's the problem with early detection that skews the statistics, makes them look good because of 5-year survival. And then because of overdiagnosis, meaning women and men and all forms of cancer, breast, prostate, and they wanted to start screening for lung cancer now, colon cancer screenings. Like, all of these screenings end up looking the same when you look at the statistics at the level which would be necessary to understand the problem. So because of screening, you diagnose more people, 2,000 people, but 2,000 people have non-progressive cancer, a cancer that's not going to harm them. Shoot, there's an article that I didn't share in this. It's a cancer that never was. Great little read. Everybody should check it out. And people are being diagnosed with cancer, but really that cancer that never would have hurt them or it was not really truly cancer. It's a cancerous cell, but it's not really the cancer you think of. Because you think of cancer, if I said you have cancer, you think what? Oh my God, I'm going to what?
Yeah.
Die, right? That's what people think. But there are cancers that won't kill you, which people aren't told that. You're going to get told that truth in my office. I want you all to know that, all right? So 2,000 people with non-progressive cancers get diagnosed. 1,000 people, the same 1,000 people, still get the progressive cancers that would kill them. But when you look at the statistics on that and you do the math, well, then there's 2,400 people made it to, out of the 3,600 died, and you had 2,400 made it. Well, that's 80%, so that's 100% better. You do all that math, and that's the way they skew the statistics. Decision aids for prostate cancer screening 2019. Again, clinical trials fail to resolve whether to what degree screening using PSA tests can help reduce prostate cancer mortality, even in 2019. Okay? Otis Webb-Brawley, a fully informed man, now a fully informed man about the benefits and risks of prostate cancer screening, should be told all this by their doctor and then given the opportunity to say, do you want to get screened or not? It can be an indicator. Listen, I'm not saying don't get screened. I'm actually going to say that because it can be an indicator of, but you have to also know that you could have a cancer, more aggressive cancer, a deadly type cancer, and your PSA doesn't go up. But you have to understand all of this to make an informed decision, and you need the information upon the treatment efficacy to ultimately know what to do after the test comes positive, and that is the most important thing, all right? And this is what I'm going to promise every one of you. That though I'm giving you this information, we have Wellness Way physicians and doctors all over the United States who would help you in understanding this. Now, I will say that every single one of these Wellness Way physicians haven't studied prostate cancer to the degree in which I have. But I will help them help you, all right? So I just want to give that shout out to all the Wellness Way docs who are, and a lot of other medical physicians, or medical physicians, alternative medical physicians. And there are a lot of people that are, in chiropractic communities and naturopathy that are teaching somewhat of this information and helping men understand it and doing things. So there's a lot of there, not just, but that's just me trying to be fair is fair. You know what I mean? I'm not like, hey, I'm the best and nobody else. And yeah. So testing CBC. So these are some of the testing that I like to do if we are looking for overall health, but also for looking at the specifics. So again, going back to what are the triggers, okay? So CBC, complete blood count with differential. It has a few good indicators, but it's very, very inadequate in my opinion, but it is a good base and foundation. So food allergies, stool. Food allergies is more of a tool. It looks for foods that your body responds negatively to that may promote inflammation through an immune response. That's why we would do that testing. It's more like stop dripping gasoline on a fire, and that's why you eliminate food allergies. They're not a cause, but they can be a contributor once disease starts, especially. So a stool, Hippocrates said, look well to the spine for the cause and prevention of all disease, but he also said all disease begins in the gut. Now, a lot of people mistake that statement or that quote as meaning the gut causes the disease. Well, it begins there. The gut is one of the most prominent organ systems of our body where the disease begins. It's not necessarily what causes it, because then there's causes of what you put in your mouth or what you're exposed to, or even how well your spine is aligned can negatively affect your digestive process. I used to have IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and guess what? My spine, I had scoliosis. Corrected my spine in chiropractic school. I no longer deal with IBS. I used to go 2-3 days without bowel movements, men, women, and even anybody out there. If you don't go to the bathroom on a regular basis, in fact, clinical or trials in humans or studies, observational studies in humans, people who are constipated for even as little as 1 day without bowel movements on a regular basis have an increased risk of cancer. Crazy, right? So I'll go 2-3 days without bowel movement. My body was backing up with toxins. So good food can actually become toxic to the body when it isn't, the waste products from that digestive process isn't eliminated effectively. So digestive health is critical. So you want to know those things. Heart rate variability, that's what HRV is. Heart rate variability, I've got some studies I'll mention at the very end. Ultimately, if we get there, actually, probably. But heart rate variability is a measurement of how well your nervous system is adapting. If you adapt better, they've seen time and time again, they literally say if you have a properly functioning nervous system, this is medical journals, neurology journals, looking at cancer patients and how well their nervous system functions. They've actually found that women and men who have a properly functioning nervous system actually have the highest opportunity to live the longest. And even staging, they said, was not a large factor in survival rates if they had a properly functioning nervous system. Because somebody with a poor functioning nervous system, all right, a very weak nervous system, which runs and controls every system in your body. This is why spinal alignment is so important. This is why stress in your life, which negatively affects your neurology, your mental mindset is so important because of the sympathetic tone, parasympathetic balances that are disrupted through stress responses or spinal misalignments. So it literally, it determines everything else. It controls your immune system, it controls your hormones, it controls your inflammation, it does so many things for you. So it's a critical test that we do in my office. Male Dutch or hormones, you can do blood or you can do a male Dutch study. I'm going to go a couple examples of each, and you want some immune testing, all right? You really want to know what the immune system is doing. Because, and just to kind of clarify, these are some of the tests that we run in the Wellness Way, and this is a test that looks at your immune system, okay? So this is kind of immune system, and this is a patient with prostate cancer. And what do we find? Extremely weak immune system. And what do you need to fight cancer? You need a strong immune system. So we test immunomarkers, and we get an assessment of where the immune system is and how much we need to promote immunomodulation. And there are things, really cool things that can do that the good Lord's provided for us, and we're going to talk about that. That's why I'm the wild doc, because I go out into the wild to find you some medicine. Talking about medicinal mushrooms and other things like that, not necessarily the psychoactive ones, but I'm not harping on those. Those aren't drugs. Those are. I loved it. My pastor preached on Sunday. He read from Genesis, and it's like Genesis 3:1. It's like, in the beginning, God created everything, and when he was finished, he said it was good. And then medicine says, hey, guess what? That marijuana, God made a mistake. That medicinal mushroom, God made a mistake. Hey, those are drugs. No, they're not. Those are plants. Yeah, don't get me going. I'm having fun tonight. Please hang with me. Come on. When you're talking and you're reading about penises and penile prosthesis and, you know, diapers and stuff like that, you all are chuckling here. I mean, it just makes you have to have a sense of humor. All right, chemical castration or physical castration. So ultimately PSA screening, just the title is there, but here are some of the points I want to point out in this article. All right. It therefore now only remains for the Gothenburg authors, the authors of this major study that's arguing that androgen deprivation or chemical castration is beneficial, or even physical castration for that matter, data or independent audit. So they should release the data for independent audit. However, although the trial was largely funded by the public purse, that would mean the taxpayers paid for this study, taxpayers aren't allowed to look at the data because the authors who are bought and paid for, the Statement Carlson, all these authors unambiguously say data from the Gothenburg randomized trial are not available to outside investigators. So let me ask you all this real quick. Think about this. So this is a study that is basically like, it's their foundation. It's the foundation for which androgen deprivation therapy, hormone deprivation, suppressing your testosterone, all right? Those drugs. This is the foundation they stand on. Somebody give me like a three-legged chair real quick. Cut one leg off and let me stand on it. That's not very solid, and let me show you. The reason, you know, if I had a curtain over it and it was standing by, I'd be like, hey, stand on this, Anthony, real quick. And it was like, it's either a four-legged or three-legged. It's a strong foundation, but I'm not letting you see whether it has all four legs or not. Would you be like, can I see it at least before I stand on it? They say, no, you're not allowed to see our results. No, you're not allowed to independently assess the data. If somebody says, hey, I did the study, here's the data, my results were, it's good, it's effective, it's safe. And you say, hey, can I see that? See it? See the data, raw data? What would actually tell us the truth for sure? No, you can't see that. Hey, no. Nope, you may have paid for it, taxpayer, but you can't see it. Oh, all right. Practicing urologists know the well-described. And listen, I understand that I'm being somewhat joking, comical, and I understand that men are out there suffering with prostate cancer right now, and they've been misled. And there's a part of me wants to be like, you know what, I don't want to upset you. No, I want to piss you off, actually. I'm the guy who wants to piss you off at your medical physician so that you go back to him and say, how dare you not to know the research better than the wild doc? Yeah, and you can quote me on that. All right, movie? No. Okay. Practicing urologists know, again, this is coming from medical physicians. I'm reading it to you. I'm the delivery man for the truth. Kind of like, what can Brown do for you? Like the UPS man, like my last name's Brown and I deliver the truth, What can Brown do for you? Dale Brown, Dr. Brown. All right, practicing urologists know the well-described all-cause clinical consequences of androgen deprivation therapy, monotherapy, namely coronary artery disease, reduced insulin sensitivity, diabetes, decreased muscle strength, anemia, bone fractures, cognitive dysfunction. But none of us can yet quantify the degree at which androgen deprivation therapy actually reduces metastatic spread of prostate cancer deaths. So there you have it. Medical physicians saying, we can't tell you whether we're going to actually extend your life or not, but you probably won't be able to have sex, your libido will be low, you'll die of heart disease and diabetes, and we'll medicate you for that, don't worry. A 1940 study, 41, is where really the idea that testosterone actually promotes cancer, which is just a horrible, horrible study. And this is another one of those foundational original studies looking at testosterone levels. And I do give you the link to I will give you the link. I think this is one of the things I added last minute because just studying this content. Phenomenal medical physician, actually, of a urology association, telling people the truth that doctors are not informed or they're lying. It's one or the other. Listen, don't blame your doctor until you figure out whether they knew the truth or not. You know what I mean? But do figure out, are they unaware of the information I'm sharing? Or are they a liar? Or are they deceiving you? Do you follow me? So, of the 3 men, 1 had castration, only 2 of the men results were reported, and so it was basically 1 man with intact testicles was actually used to say that prostate cancer was promoted by, and they gave him testosterone for 14 days and saw a clinical biomarker of prostate cancer go up for that short term. But if you look at, Anthony can get if you really look at the graphs on testosterone, here's what happens. So it's like cancer and testosterone rates going up, or, trying to think. Basically, testosterone goes up and then it plateaus. So the cancer rates, okay, as testosterone goes up, okay, so if we have T and we have cancer, so as testosterone goes up during this very short window here, very small window. So basically, the way the guy explains, the medical physician who is, I thought, brilliant in this explanation, he basically explained it like a plant. So they only tested it through here. So if testosterone in a castrated individual, which they have no T, and then they give him testosterone, it's like watering a plant. So if the plant is wilting, like the cancer isn't growing, if you give it water, it's going to grow, right? But if you it grew, look, it grew. But is it going to grow into a sequoia? You know what I mean? Is your dandelion going to grow into sequoia just because you give it water? No, it doesn't feed it. It's just like watering it. So it does help promote the growth for a temporary period of time. But now they're actually seeing over the long term, in some of the original studies, they've seen it plateau. The cancer death rate didn't go up. But now they're seeing as testosterone levels go up, again, this would be increasing testosterone levels, they're seeing actually some beneficial effects. And again, I give you that, which is the next study. Low T predicts prostate cancer progression in men, active surveillance. So watching men actively doing nothing except for studying what their body is actually doing, that if they had low T in that bottom column there, they had almost 2.4 times the prostate cancer progression. So testosterone therapy after basically having your prostate removed, radical prostatectomy. So surgery. Men who are given hormone therapy, so men, if you've had this procedure already, I'm sorry I didn't get to you early enough and soon enough, but if you've had this procedure, you've had your prostate removed, and you're suffering the consequences of low testosterone, and your medical physician isn't informed enough of the most recent evidence available to us all, you would be able to go back to him and say, hey, I've got some studies here that show that testosterone may actually benefit me, while your medical physician typically is going to currently believe, because the idea of androgen deprivation being beneficial, all right? Lowering the idea, the myth, the dogma, again, of low T being beneficial for prostate cancer or protective, it's completely wrong. And actually, studies are now giving us the opportunity that treatment with hormones, with testosterone, actually seen a lower rate of 4% in the testosterone group, and in the men without testosterone, it was a 16%. It was in 8 cases. So you look at those numbers and you can start to understand that, the evidence is you can still have sex with your wife, because if you're given testosterone possibly, you may be able to get an erection. You may be able to have more libido. You may be more mentally sound. You may have lower heart disease risk, diabetes risk, things like that. You could actually live longer from multiple different aspects. And again, that's not just a simple answer. You need to figure out the factors of why cancer grew in the first place. All right, that's where it needs more in depth than just, hey, here's testosterone. But hopefully that gives hope to a man who maybe right now being told that they can't have testosterone. So this is a man who actually went to a clinic, a Wellness Way doc. I love this example. Me and buddy Jacques, Dr. Mosier really treats a lot of cancer patients. He works with a lot of people, and it's amazing. He's got some unique examples. And this man came to him after actually getting a physical castration. So his balls chopped off. All right, so the man got his balls chopped off. And what does the deprivation of your hormones and having your testicles chopped off, what does it do? It increases your cardiovascular risk. So immediately we ordered a cardiometabolic panel on him. And if you look at all the markers, and I'm going to dwell on it, but all the red, it means really bad. So his cardiac mortality rate was really severe, and he's already perished and passed away. Because when you chop your testicles off, there's only so much we can do with natural things. It's sad. It's extremely sad, the results of this, But that is literally what the peer-reviewed medical literature shows, and why there's a higher death rate in men who follow conventional medical treatment for prostate cancer, and why screening has no evidence of benefit. But there are ways to use it properly, all right? And I'll give you some simple things that you'll be able to do. This is somebody we went through a Dutch study, so this is a Dutch study, but this looks at a man with low libido, so hormone testing for purposes outside of prostate cancer. But you can see, and this is what they do with their hormone deprivation drugs. So there's a pathway that will push testosterone in a direction. This is total testosterone, but you can see that there's 5-alpha reductase. All right, 5-alpha DHT. This hormone is a pathway which can cause enlarged prostate. It's really not what we see in prostate cancer, despite the idea that that drug is what's going to treat prostate cancer. But his 5-alpha reductase activity is very low. So somebody like this, if we give them a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor, all right, so if we can give them that, guess what? We're able to see improvements in the pathway going towards testosterone, increased libido, increase. The man also had elevated estrogen levels, which actually had elevated estrogen levels, and guess what? So his testosterone wasn't bad. He had elevated estrogen. His 5-alpha reductase activity was very low. So we've got problems here. This is kind of like if you were to say the hormone pathway, if it was true, pushing cancer, this would be it. Because of estrogen going down this pathway here, the 4-OHE1, and there's multiple estrogens, ladies and gentlemen. Not just one. It's not just estrogen. There's estrogens. So test them all. Don't just test one. So you go down that pathway, it leads to DNA damage. So we can literally look at hormone pathways and hormone metabolites and be able to get an assessment of someone's potential risks for health conditions like cancer or hormonal problems. Biopsy risks, not so benign. On John Hopkins' article of high hospitalization rates from biopsy, so hospitalization rates and death, you can die from the biopsy alone. So instance of sepsis following transrectal ultrasound guided biopsy. Sepsis is a deadly infection, all right? Men beware of biopsy for prostate cancer diagnosis. Details out men who had just the bad organization. So there's like human mistakes like MRI mix-up, biopsy mix-up, and then, extra biopsies, and then like the guy dies of sepsis. So it's like a painful way of dying. And I think they've also done it where there's perforation and they accidentally stuck the intestines, and the intestines leak out in the abdomen, and so your feces infects your abdomen. So, but not only that, British Medical Journal 2012, what about seeding during prostate biopsy? Seeding, this is where I was talking about how your body can encapsulate cancer. And yes, you may have elevated PSA, so they say, hey, you got to get a biopsy, but your body's already taken care of the cancer. It's encapsulated it. So it's not going anywhere, it's not growing. Your body could have already taken care of it. And yes, you have cancer in there, so the biopsy is going to say, hey, look, you have cancer. But the biopsy actually did what? Ultrasound-guided prostate biopsy to cause needle track, seeding, and extracapsular extension of the tumor. So literally, you have this capsule. So what it's doing, Anthony, on the screen here for me, let's explain this in detail. So so let's say, here's your, prostate, but there's the cancer, okay? The green will be cancer here, okay? So that's the cancer tumor, obviously a lot larger than what it would be in your prostate, but inside the prostate you have a cancer tumor, okay? Your prostate is producing more PSA because there's pressure from that tumor on your prostate, and pressure on your prostate increases PSA. So if you had the, the finger in the rear end, test right before where they milked the prostate or just palpated the prostate, and then you got your blood work taken, you could actually have a misdiagnosis of elevated prostate. Or if you had sex the night before, you get an elevated prostate PSA antigen the next day and a misdiagnosis of elevated prostate. Come back, let's do a biopsy, make sure you don't have cancer. So a lot of problems in men, you need that explanation of the ways in which you can naturally elevate PSA temporarily, which would actually be beneficial for you. Yeah. PSA actually helps prevent the spread of cancer, and we're going to go through that in a minute, a study on that, which then I always tell men that, there's an excuse for your wife, for you to encourage your wife into the bedroom tonight and tell her, hey, I just learned from the Wild Doc, let's get a little wild because if I elevate my PSA, it helps me prevent prostate cancer spread, metastatic disease. So sex does that, so let's go, honey, doctor's orders. Come on now. Cook them dinner first at least, and then do the dishes. I bet you that's the... I got a lady in here saying, my staff saying, yes, that's right, do the dishes.
Don't just come at her with that.
Yes. So the green is, don't just come at her with that request or the doctor's orders, do the dishes, and then, hey, I was reading, do the dishes, and be like, she's like, why are you doing the dishes? Oh, no reason at all, no reason at all. I just got done watching this cool cancer video about prostate cancer, and guess what I learned? PSA is elevated through sex, and PSA, the hormone, is actually anti-cancer. It's anti-angiogenic. It helps prevent the spread of cancer. So isn't that crazy? Sex actually helps you prevent cancer. So crazy. I'm going to go back and make sure. Oh, are you done? Would you like seconds? Let me go ahead and do the rest of the dishes here real quick, and then, yeah, that's how you do it right there. Take notes from the... No, I'm not the champion. Sadly, my wife... My wife, well, don't get a big head. All right, sorry. Okay, wait. So this is like the needle. So you got this needle going in there. So the doctor sticks you with a needle, all right? Sticks you with a needle. Takes cancerous cells out. Oh, you got cancer, and that's the findings, but guess what they did? They literally just punctured that capsule. The blue was the capsule. It was healthy tissue. Cancer was within, but it was encapsulated by the body already. So your body was protecting you against the spread and deadliness of the cancer, but the needle punctured the capsule, and now cancer does what? Spreads, leaks out. And that's what they've found. Men, I bet you if you had a prostate biopsy, you weren't told that. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook right now, if you... All right, give me a yes, I've gotten it. I was told before my biopsy, I was given a biopsy and I was told beforehand that it could cause the spread of cancer if I have it encapsulated. Or no, I wasn't. I want to know, and we're going to take a poll there. Surgery. So what couples say about their sexual relations and opportunities and abilities, 90% of couples, surgeons led 90% of couples to overestimate their erectile recovery. The ability for the man to be able to sustain and maintain and get an erection, 90% of surgeons misled couples. Said, oh, you'll be fine, 60, 70% will be able to have an erection. If not, we'll use Viagra. And I'm sure they didn't go all the way down the line to say, we can give you a penile prosthesis. What do they call those? No, I'm just kidding. Don't say it. Men's experience the penile rehabilitation. So there's actually therapy for this. Penile rehabilitation. Who would have thought? We're going to rehabilitate your penis. I told you, this stuff is kind of comical. I did a video that was a little bit more in depth. Make sure, Ashley, that we link to that video that I did yesterday on Facebook when we get up on YouTube. In fact, only 16% of men will actually be able to will return to their pre-surgery erectile function. 60 years and older, those men, only 4% will be able to go back to pre-surgery erection, like strong like bull. Okay. I don't know why, strong like bull. I just love saying it, strong like bull. Why has it got to be a bull? I mean, have you seen my mini donkey? I'm telling you, we got a mini donkey, and that thing, every once in a while gets excited. I don't know why. We only have 2 female mini pigs in the pen with it. And this donkey, like, you ever heard that? Nope, don't go there. You know what? Should be strong like donkey. It does flap. Never. Okay, too much. I mean, if you live on a farm, there's tons of things you can joke about. And then, hey, honey, take a look at this. All right. Prostate cancer survivors or survivorship and a review of erectile dysfunction. The contemporary literature says 60 to 70%, but how do they judge that 60 to 70%? Is if men can get an erection 50% of the time, just enough to penetrate. So you ever have that, I think they called it like liquor, never mind. Liquor, you know what? I should probably, alcohol, you know what I mean, what it does. It just kind of like, so what the reality is, you ever had that frustration when you're drunk and you're like, I just want to have sex right now. Sorry. But the reality is they couldn't even, they could barely get it up. If they could get it up 50% of the time, just enough to be able to penetrate, but it wasn't actually a strong erection. And when you evaluate pre-surgery, post-surgery, pre-radiation, and post-radiation, the ability to do this or do it is significantly lowered. Prevalence and predicting risk factors for sexual dysfunction. So other problems with sexual function, lesser known but still very prevalent if men go through prostate cancer medical treatment, all right, which actually, again, stick with us here. I know that I'm going a little bit long, but the reality is you can actually increase your ability to be strong like bull or donkey, and through the treatments. I'm going to actually discuss that the literature is available to us all to actually be giving men. So you can get better sexual function and reverse prostate cancer. That's what the clinical studies actually show. But here's some other side effects, so hopefully I can actually, so I had a buddy that, in the Wellness Way, Dr. Greg, who was actually telling me about a patient of his who came to one of the Wellness Way, Dr. Greg's clinic, and literally was like, I just want to know what you can do for more of the tests, and then literally was like, I'm not changing my food, I'm not getting rid of food, I'm going on a trip. He literally posted, I guess Dr. Greg said he posted a picture of him holding a margarita with the most unhealthy meat food in front of him at a restaurant while he's at Mayo Clinic. So he was like, I want to do natural, but I'm going to do the medical way. I'm going to do the medical way, but I want to do natural, but I don't want to do natural in the sense that the Wellness Way docs are going to tell you to do it, which is actually change your lifestyle, get to root causes. I always tell people, you know what? If you're going to eat a McDonald's diet every single day, I can give you a ton of herbs to try and help you live a little bit longer. But the reality is you're still knocking on death's doorstep, and you're going to end up there sooner than if you actually change your life and got rid of the root causes of the problem, which one of them is your diet. So this guy says, I'll take the herbs and supplements, and of course he went through cancer, did all the medical treatment, took the herbs, but didn't change anything else. All right? So likelihood is we prolonged it before it came back, and now he's going through his second go around with cancer. So because he didn't follow recommendations. So these include, and this is actually an argument. This is a medical literature argument that is put out by scientists, that diet nutrition is difficult for men to adhere to. And even one study showed that even a quarter of men would rather continue eating pork chops and drinking beer than be able to have sex with their wives the rest of their life and avoid surgery and prostate cancer treatments. They would rather not change their diet. They'd rather, I'm like, a pork chop looks better than your wife. I'm sorry, dude, mate. I mean, I don't know, but that's pretty bad, you know what I mean? And that's a bad joke. I apologize. That went way too far. But I mean, a quarter of men, we're like, oh, do the surgery, cut my prostate out. I'll never be able to have sex again. Just let me eat a pork chop, drink my beer, and watch my football. Nothing. Okay.
The question is, how many of those dudes are having sex with their wives to begin with?
Exactly. Probably. Maybe a quarter of them weren't married. So maybe there was that reason why that quarter of the men in the study. So altered perception of orgasm, orgasm-associated pain, penile sensory changes, or urinary incontinence during foreplay or sexual stimulation. Remember that there are a reality that men are going through this. And I apologize if I have been offensive, that what I'm saying is offensive to you. You should have been told this in the first place. And I'm the type of person I want you to be pissed off. And ultimately, even if it means you're pissed off at me, but you're going to take this information and run with it and actually do something that would improve your quality of life and warn other men not to do and follow the same recommendations as you, I'm glad I pissed you off. I'm sorry if you're pissed off at me. So, but laughter is the best medicine, so if you have laughed, I've given you better medicine than your medical physician did. Orgasm-associated incontinence, penile shortening, and penile deformity. All right, the PC vaccine, so there's a prostate cancer vaccine. Doctors who raised doubts about it received death threats. So if you read the FDA's approved the prostate cancer vaccine, it's a $93,000 cancer drug. It's not a drug, it's actually a vaccine, but obviously media doesn't really read research. So anyways, and it adds 4 months. It was approved for 4.1 months of a life extension. It was $93,000. So folks, I've got better research. So I should just say right now, I'm going to hold hostage the nutritional recommendations that have been studied in prostate cancer patients that were actually able to reverse prostate cancer that you could do on your own at your home if I give you the resource. Take it, Ashley, off the website right now, because I want to hold hostage this nutritional information. I'm just kidding. She may actually, you already did it? But I mean, $93,000. Men, if you want to pay me $93,000, I will promise you I will get you a longer life, and that's what the clinical research shows time and time again with nutritional intervention for prostate cancer, and even metastatic prostate cancer. Men, in case studies, time and time again, through nutrition, have been able to reverse metastatic cancer that went to their bone from the prostate. Insight and new doubts of prostate cancer vaccine. Doctors who raised the doubts received death threats. Even FDA declined to approve the drug in 2007 when a clinical trial failed to show that it slowed tumor growth. The incited protests, lawsuits, and death threats against the physicians on the FDA advisory panel who did not recommend the approval. So there was lawsuits against them for evaluating the research that said it didn't improve survival. There was death threats against them. I don't know how you sue somebody for looking at the evidence and saying, well, my job as a regulatory member of the FDA is to look at your data you present to me from the drug company and look at it and say, does it really show that men are going to live longer? And I don't think it does show that. How can they file a lawsuit? I don't understand, but somehow the pharmaceutical companies can do this. And also they give them death threats. And after they did, U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved Provigen in 2010, which they did sin when they did this, for advanced prostate cancer, satisfying investors, not the people, the investors. Donald Berry, MD, Anderson Cancer Research Center, leading biostatistician, says, here's a great way to get a drug approved, kill the control groups, because that's what they've found. It was a vaccine to target PSA, and if you study what PSA does for people, I just thought it ironically, that graph does not have anything to do with prostate cancer, or PSA actually helping prevent the progression and spread of cancer. So PSA, the hormone, actually prevents the spread of cancer, all right? It's beneficial. They've actually considered making a drug that is similar in its action and effect to your body as PSA. But they give you hormone deprivation, or they cut your testicles off, you don't produce, and your prostate needs testosterone for the true test PSA to be elevated, it needs testosterone. So if you give hormones, you don't produce testosterone, you don't produce PSA. That's your body's response to cancer growing, which is actually beneficial and proper in God's design. For you to fight cancer better, your hormones help you. But they suppress your hormones, so they allow cancer to grow more rapidly. So there you have it. So ultimately giving a vaccine, training your immune system to attack that protein, that hormone. Clearing the hormone from your bloodstream faster would actually increase the spread of the cancer, and that's what they found in the raw data. Anti-angiogenic means lack of blood flow, but I don't want to go too much into that just now. I'll talk about that with tomato paste in a second. I know people are like, what in the world? Blood flow, blood vessel formation, and angiogenic, and tomato paste. What do all of those have in common? Exclusive questionable data propped up Cancer Provigen. The company also faces at least 5 lawsuits accusing management of insider trading and misleading stakeholders and their treatment prospects. And even cancer drug CEO sold $34 million in stock before admitting the product was a flop. But yet, despite the manufacture of the product, now after the industry, the pharmaceutical industry, threaten the lives of FDA physicians who are saying, no, this drug shouldn't be on the market. After threatening the lives, not drug vaccine, after threatening the lives, effectively saying, we're going to kill you if you don't approve this vaccine. They knew it wasn't working. And after they've admitted that it doesn't work, they admitted it didn't work after the CEO sold his stock so he could cash in on the lies and the death threats. That's criminal. These people are murderers, folks, if we want to put it point blank simple. Straight to the fact. They have committed massive crimes, and that man's a millionaire for committing a crime, and he sold it, but then at least he came clean and said, hey, it was a flop, it didn't work at all. But don't worry, the FDA still allows you to get it. I don't understand why, but they do. So let's go through the nutrition. Intensive lifestyle changes. All right, a plant-based nutritional diet was effective at reversing prostate cancer. Critics want to say, oh, well, we didn't study it long enough. It only was measuring PSA levels and other cancer markers, and yeah, they all went down, and not in everybody, because there were men that didn't adhere to the nutritional lifestyle. Again, you need to adhere to the recommendations. That's the hardest thing about the wellness way, is you have to do the work. I can show you the pathway, that's the way, it's the wellness way, and I'll open the door or show you it, or blaze a trail, or at least show you where that trail is, that path is. That's the wellness way docs do. That's what I do. All right, I'll show you the path, but you've got to walk it. All right. Food chemistry, anti-proliferative, that's anti-cancer, anti-growth of cancer, dripping different nutrients or vegetables onto cancer cells in a petri dish, and what did they find? So they go through all these different common fruits and vegetables, not fruits in this one, from jalapeno to fiddlehead to English cucumber. What about Russian cucumber? They're in cahoots with cucumbers. I'm sorry, not. I got a little bit of it. I'm sorry. So what do you want to eat if you have prostate cancer? I'm going to go with, in every meal, I'm going to put the ones that actually stopped it. If I was to say I wanted to do my best, what would Dr. Brown, what would I eat? I would want to eat green onions, Brussels sprouts, and garlic. I would make leeks, green onions. Those are the ones. So garlic and Brussels sprouts actually stopped it, reversed the cancer growth. All right. Again, this is in petri dish, so it's not direct contact, but they do find some of these phytochemicals, these phytonutrients, all right, are effective in humans because they do have human trials into changing your diet. This just showed us that if direct contact with these vegetables like garlic and onions and Brussels sprouts could effectively stop the cancer growth. So I'm going to eat a lot of those, all right? Antioxidant and anti-proliferative effects of common fruits. So what are the best fruits? Well, pineapple, not so much. Lemon, hooray. And cranberry, even better. So what fruits and drinks am I going to drink? I'm going to eat garlicky leek Brussels sprout saute with a little bit of cranberry and lemon juice in my water. A cranberry lemonade. There we go. There you go. So this is how we treat prostate cancer, or we should be treating prostate cancer. And I have to tell everybody out there that I don't treat anybody for prostate cancer. I treat them for the nutrient deficiencies they have that lead to prostate cancer, or I treat them for the immune deficiencies and identify those things, and we do the things necessary to boost back their immune system, boost back their nutrient supply that is necessary to reverse cancer that has been shown in human trials. Because again, the FDA does not allow me to advertise my services for the use. This is my legal disclaimer. All these statements by Dr. Dale here have not been approved by the FDA. But for some reason, a cancer drug for which the pharmaceutical industry who makes that cancer vaccine says the vaccine doesn't work, but the FDA still allows it to be sold. So just put that into perspective, okay? But I'm not allowed to tell you I can treat prostate cancer with what I'm showing you here in this research. But I'm showing you the research so you could do it on your own. But that's the problem. That is the problem. The nemesis of physicians and doctors like myself is that when we give out information like this, there is a substantial benefit for you not to have to pay for my coaching directly, because if I didn't tell you this right now, you'd have to pay for me because I did my homework for you. I did the homework for you. Do you follow me? Let's put this in perspective. Why this isn't happening in mainstream medicine. Because you eliminate the need. It's patient heal thyself, all right? If you want to jumpstart on that pathway, that's why you pay me, all right? I like that. See, pathway, pay me. Pay me to find the pathway faster. There you go. Which one of the nuts and seeds? I would go with black walnut and pecan. Those would be my two I'd put on my salad. And what's really cool is they actually looked at the effective dosing. And if you look there, walnuts, pecans, and peanuts, those were the best. And then when you look at the antioxidant capacity, the ORAC scale, or the walnuts, again, went out by a landslide. Pecans close second, but then peanuts and pistachios not so, doing pretty poor. Okay, see, peanuts and pistachios doing pretty poor. No. Peanut. What about the peanut gallery? Anybody? Okay, sir. This was I wanted a black walnut picture, so when I was looking at black walnut, I find this. 10 serious side effects of black walnut. So literally the medical community will do anything they possibly can. But if you go to and you find this website when you're trying to reference like black walnut or search and study up, I give you the links to the studies and span out from there. And I highly recommend that you span out further than what I'm preaching and teaching to you. But the reality is here, you can find junk medical physician advice on blog sites like Life Martini. Drink your martini, but don't eat black walnuts that could prevent prostate cancer. And if you're a man drinking a martini, come on, let's be real. Your testosterone's probably lower. Seriously. So anyways, it was comical. It was really comical. It could cause allergies, could cause DNA damage. Actually, it causes DNA damage to cancer cells. That's what one does, but not your human cells. Okay, chemopreventive effect of PSP, which is a polysaccharide found in turkey tail mushrooms. Phenomenal stuff in this. When diagnosed at an advanced stage where surgery is no longer feasible, the only frontline treatment available for hormone ablation therapy or hormone deprivation therapy, unfortunately, the majority of prostate cancer patients eventually relapse with what is called hormone refractory prostate cancer, which is fatal without any medical treatment. So literally, hormone therapy or chemical or physical castration causes you to have the most deadly type of cancer. The one they admit is not treatable. Flax seeds, effective against prostate cancer. Too much fish oil, ironically, actually may promote prostate cancer, which we're not going to dive into all the factors I believe this may be. somewhat true, but also at the same time, if you eat sardines, as a healthy male, I'm not going to have a problem with that. I think that's very beneficial in many regards. But again, when you have cancer, the best diet is going to be a plant-based whole food diet. If it's plant-based, massive amounts of plants and fruits and vegetables, all right? Plant-based whole food, the entire food. And that's what we'll go through with tomato sauce in prostate cancer. Tomato and lycopene versus prostate cancer. In addition to lycopene, tomatoes have a ton of other phytonutrients and chemical compounds that have beneficial effects to your immune system, to your antioxidant capacity, those things. Lycopene as an effective agent against prostate cancer. Is it an effective agent against? Because I've seen people going to alternative clinics, but they're being told to take an isolated compound lycopene supplement, which is like the heart, and I think the alternative idea in the mind of that alternative physician is in the right direction, but he or she is giving bad advice, because the research is actually showing that lycopene, that isolated compound, could actually be promoting cancer, and that's what these studies have found. Administration, increased risk upon rebiopsy that prostate cancer had progressed in those given isolated nutrient supplements like lycopene. But lycopene and beta-carotene may actually have a beneficial effect, but when you look at the antioxidant or the effect, you'll see there that the concentrations of lycopene, as they go up across the bottom of the chart, they go up, you can see the line go down, so you see that the cells uptake it, but then it can actually promote more inflammation and damage to the cells once you get above a certain threshold. So it turns out there is a strong inverse correlation between the intake of fruits and vegetables, meaning that cancer risk goes down with the intake of fruits and vegetables, but when you take isolated compounds, the cancer risk may actually go up. And it begs the argument that generally the body maintains a balance with different classes of antioxidants that are all combined in such as tomatoes or other fruits and vegetables. So supplementation of any one compound or component may upset this interaction between different antioxidants. I think that's very well put. Do you guys get that? You need the whole food. And that's really my philosophy, and that's where the science is now leading us. So that's where I really want to almost stop and say, I'm a Christian, I love God, and I love God's design. I think I'm impressed the more and more I read science and deep into the science, not the superficial, corruption-based, money-driving science that's out there so often. All right? Science should prove what God said in the Bible is true. And when God said He provided, if we have to say that a cancer vaccine is necessary, if we have to say that the chemo and radiation, the drugs that are now available to us and being given to cancer patients are absolutely critical and necessary, then we would have to say that everybody before those drugs were created. Those man-made chemicals were created. God fell short with them. The Bible's not true then. Do you follow me? Do I have the answer for everything and everything that is natural, for every single disease process? I'm not saying that. But I would love to someday know, God, what did you create? What plant, what vegetable did you create for that condition? For the child with seizures, what plants did you? And I know few of them. You follow me? That's what I would love. That's one of my first sit-downs with Jesus when I get to heaven, all right? On enzyme-based anti-cancer molecular dietary implications, how can we imagine that beneficial effects of consuming entire fruits and vegetables in which enzyme modulating components appearing in variety amounts and portions could be mimicked by, again, supplementation with a single phytochemical? So put it to the test. What is tomato paste? Taking literally 30 milligrams, which is like a tablespoon, I believe, of heaping tablespoon of tomato paste every single day. Guess what? And this is the unique thing. Now, how would you like to be the men in this study? So while they're waiting on getting the surgery to have their prostate removed, they do biopsies of their prostate, and they check their PSA, and they say, hey, while you're waiting, we're going to randomize. A group is not going to take tomato paste, and then there's going to be a group that takes tomato paste. The group that took tomato paste saw a significant reduction in the cancer growth, even some reversal of cancerous signs and processes at the cellular level, and even lower PSA levels after they had their prostate removed. So they found out that men who are in the tomato paste group, and that's the only intervention that they recommended they do. So you'd be the man in the study. Picture yourself in this study. So you get your prostate removed and they look at the prostate. Oh my gosh, tomato paste was reversing the prostate cancer. Can you believe this? Thanks for donating your prostate. How pissed off would you be? What? I'd be like, well, we should honor. You know what I mean? Honor all those men who donated their prostate to show us how beneficial tomato paste is. Now, you may get confused because the anti-cancer vegetables, tomato is not very beneficial, and actually it was in the vegetables, but yeah, actually it should have been involved in the fruits, right? Because is tomato a fruit? Ah, science-y there, right? Come on now. Hey, scientist, you said tomatoes were a vegetable, and they're not a vegetable. But, all right. Come on, technicalities, right? Oxidative damage, DNA, prostate cancer consuming tomato sauce. Just again, PSA concentrations go down. That's a measure. And they actually have drugs that if they lower PSA, the FDA will approve these drugs for prostate cancer because they lower your PSA. And that's all they had to measure. They didn't actually have to measure whether it actually benefited. Androgen deprivation therapy, all these drugs. So they lower PSA and they get approved for a biomarker, not for true survival. That's how they get FDA approval on some of this stuff. So then they'll argue, well, that tomato paste doesn't work because all you're measuring is prostate specific antigen. Actually, there's other studies that measured more than prostate specific antigen and looked at the cells on biopsy in the previous study that I just talked about. Well, that study's only 30 men. That's not very large. It's not very large, but it's still the best science you got, and you have nothing to prove it wrong. So shut your mouth. That's what I'd like to say to them. I mean, come on, man. Like, seriously. Like, what do you have to lose? Consume some tomato paste if you're diagnosed with prostate cancer. And wait and watch. Don't just actively do nothing, like active surveillance. I'm reiterating from the beginning of this talk. Phytochemicals are our guardians of our health. Neurological system, all right? So, neurological system, this is one of the things we need to evaluate. So I talked about other tests, from hormone testing to immunological testing to heart rate variability. That's where this would come into play. If your vagus nerve, if you have an active vagus nerve, all right, cancer stage, this comes from PubMed, all right? This is the Biological Regulatory Homeostatic Agents. This is the journal, all right? Comes to the conclusion, looking at the cancer patients, they say that cancer stage may no longer be important. If you have an actively functioning nervous system, if you actually have a nervous system that runs and controls every system of your body, and in fact even your immune system and your inflammation and your hormones, if those systems are able to run effectively and efficiently, and chiropractic benefits that, reducing stress benefits that. Heart rate variability scores improve with exercise regularly. So there's lots of ways you can do this. Breathing techniques can do this. Mindfulness, relaxation techniques, taking a nap can improve this. So a lot of ways you can improve your nervous system, not just chiropractic, and that's what we would coach somebody on if their heart rate variability scores were really poor. And we're like, we need to do more than just adjust because your spine is a wreck. It may take us time to get the spine right, all right? So let me break this down. Cancer stage may no longer be important. Staging of cancer is nothing more than a snapshot in time looking at where you are today. It does not answer how fast you got there. Does that make sense? So somebody could be in a stage 4 right now, but it took 30, 40 years to get to stage 4. But they have a properly functioning nervous system. Thus, the cancer is developing extremely slowly. It's progressing extremely slowly because their nervous system is doing its best to coordinate the immune system, to coordinate the other systems of the body, to keep it at bay, to slow its progression. They may actually live longer than the man or woman with any type of cancer that is stage 1. But if it only took a few months to get to stage 1 or a few years, because their nervous system is so weak, because their nervous system has been so traumatized through either physical traumas to their spine, even their head, or through emotional traumas that are disrupting the neurological balance, well, because their nervous system can't keep it at bay, it's going to progress and grow much more rapidly, and they could be dead before the stage 4. That's why you should always take into account heart rate variability when looking at true prognosis. What's the chance of this person living a long and healthy life? Or how long do they have left? Or could we reverse it if we start doing the things that enhance neurological function or enhance immunological function or help balance out and balance out the hormones or remove toxicity? So those are the factors. The sympathetic nervous system in cancer, again, it's literally like a switch, they said. stress, sympathetic, your fight or flight system, if overly activated, is literally a switch that takes you from a cancer that would be harmless to a cancer that would be deadly. So your nervous system is a key component in surviving cancer. Again, yet another study, autonomic dysfunction in patients with advanced cancer, prevalence clinical. Again, autonomic dysfunction is highly prevalent in patients with advanced cancer and is associated with an increased severity and fatigue and reduced survival. All right, so just to wrap this up, just kind of reiterate, what should you be eating? So we mentioned broccoli. Broccoli is one of the strongest anti-cancer vegetables you could get. So the broccoli guys, hey, look, I'm a tree. And then I'm a walnut. Remember black walnuts being the most beneficial anti-cancer, and what was the other thing I mentioned that helps prevent prostate cancer stem cells, which was the turkey tail mushroom study? All right, but sadly, what is the mushroom? He says, I hate this game. Get it? Okay. Everybody, I appreciate everybody being online. Anybody here got any questions, anything like that? Do we have any questions online either? I'm pretty sure I exhausted everybody's attention span. But you know what? Cancer patients are individuals who want to truly evaluate the evidence, the risks of the medical treatment. Like that's what we should be saying now. You should be evaluating the risks of taking your doctor's recommendations when it comes to prostate cancer. And then you should be taking and understanding into the implementation of the dietary things, testing the nervous system, testing hormones properly, and looking at your assessment of how your body's functioning. And then if, God forbid, you are diagnosed with prostate cancer because you didn't know this stuff or you weren't ready for this, get to the right physician who's going to help and give you the latest and best scientific evidence that will actually provide you with an opportunity to not only beat cancer, but keep having sex with your loved ones, your wife, loved ones. I don't know why I said that. Be around for your loved ones, have sex with your wife. Like, I should have just ended with that little mushroom joke. Any questions online real quick? Facebook or anything like that? Okay, cool. All right, so let's wrap it up. No? Anybody get it? Get the joke?
Yeah.
Okay, wrap it up.